Welcome. Thank you for joining either in person or virtually. My name is Laura, and I'll be talking about rehumanizing the technical user. To kick things off, I'll share a little bit about me. I'm a software developer, a dancer, and an inspiring amateur DJ. I've had a mix of roles throughout my career, including technical account management and solutions engineering. And in more recent years, I've worked on accelerator tools and self-service capabilities where my user is also a software developer. And while working in tech for tech might sound quite distancing from user experience, working in tech for tech has amplified my curiosity and how people from all types of backgrounds make sense of technologies and choose to describe them. For example, in her memoir, Life in Code, Ellen Ullman describes two clients arriving at their workstations, never having used a browser before, spending about an hour clicking around, surfing the web. The users attempt to convey their respective experiences, but unfortunately, and understandably, language fails them. One declares they clicked on a link, while the other counters with the fact they clicked on a picture. One recounts seeing a library, the other is certain they saw City Hall. And neither are able to calibrate. Neither are able to shake their cognitive priors, or in other words, their expectations from previous computer programs. Like any user, a technical user is influenced by their cognitive priors. A user becomes technical by building deep expertise in some number of products or tools relevant to their industry. And at some point in their career, they will experience a need or a mandate to use a different set of tools, in which case they may need to unlearn certain habits. For example, a professional photographer switching to a new camera brand might have to relearn button placement and adjust manual settings to match their preferences. Similarly, a chemist moving to a new lab might start making use of unfamiliar settings on familiar equipment in order to conform to a new set of controls. As a software developer, I've seen firsthand how we're expected to adapt without being briefed on context. For example, a new starter joins a development team and is assigned their first coding task on the basis that they were hired to do Python or do Node.js. But just because a developer knows a language or tool doesn't automatically mean they'll understand how the broader solution context and organizational controls affects its use. And when the names of programming languages or technology products and tools dominate a team's vocabulary, it becomes difficult to distinguish between assumptions and facts. I've participated in many jargon-heavy design time conversations riddled with hidden assumptions while working in tech for tech. It's so easy for technical people to misunderstand each other when the focus is solely on the named technologies at play. These conversations about developing new features tend to go something like this. In discussing a new API subscription feature to be built, one developer stresses Terraform and a bit of config. The other states the fact that some human is able to use YAML and config test. One references YAML again, while the other insists Terraform is sufficient. And the conversation ends with a sense of agreement. It feels like alignment happened, but it didn't. Neither developer uses natural language to describe the feature or considers the developer-user touchpoints. These conversations echo the exchange between the internet surfing colleagues from 1995. The shape of the conversations are very similar. The participants are confident in what they recall or visualize, but are not able to calibrate on the feature or experience being described. In the case of technical teams leaning on jargon, language fails them because they are using named technologies as a proxy for user experience. Traditionally, a developer will think of their user as a layperson, as an end user somewhere far, far away. In the developer's mind, a user is an outgroup. And from social psychology, we know there's a fairly low bar for a group of humans to see another group of humans as different and separate to them. On the flip side, when you as a team are developing solutions for users who are also technical, it's easy to treat them as part of your in-group. And this is when naive realism kicks in, because the developer identifies so much with their developer user, their perception of the world is treated as like for like with their user's perception of the world. The developer expects their user, a member of their in-group, to understand what is meant by the Terraform. But technical jargon like the Terraform and conf test does not, on its own, explain what the developer user needs to interact with in order to do something like subscribe to an API. Something that can be done instead is to identify the key personas and map out a journey. And that can be used as a visual anchor for design time discussions. Here's a sketch describing a sequence of technical interactions for subscribing to an API with things like YAML, conf test, and Terraform in the mix. Let's say we have an app developer looking to start consuming a new internal API within their organization. And let's say the API lifecycle management platform or API gateway relies on source control for disaster recovery. Now, before this developer can start consuming an API from their runtime, they need to subscribe to it with the appropriate details like their usage tier or rate limiting. The application owner, which could be, say, a product owner, has a stake in this initial part of the journey and may play a role in reviewing these details. Now let's say the app developer fills out the subscription details in a YAML file and commits that to a source control repository. This triggers a CI/CD pipeline that validates the contents of this file using conf test. And if all goes well, the app developer merges their changes in the repository, and a CI/CD pipeline translates those subscription details into a set of Terraform resources. These resources, which may include things like credentials and rate limiting details, are then applied to the organization's API lifecycle management platform. A team focused on improving the developer experience might notice an opportunity to shift left here. The app developer could validate their subscription details before even committing their changes to the repository. While conf test is a tool that can be easily searched, downloaded, and installed as a CLI, the team will need to consider how to best package and distribute the repository along with the custom validations required to pass for a successful subscription. A journey like this one enables the team to start having discussions on the who and the what and the when, and not just the underlying solution supporting the developer experience. Back in 1995, our internet friends didn't have much language readily available to them for describing what they had experienced. Over time, the language to describe the relevant personas and journeys and touch points evolved and now feels very familiar. But as the internet was developed and made readily available to the general public, IT professionals and the creators of the internet did have some language to lean on from their priors. Interaction paradigms of graphical user interfaces and a military-operated network was not wildly far off from browsing the web by clicking on a series of hyperlinks. And the language we have available today will be precursors to what is ahead. Just like the creators of ARPANET brought their previous language on networks, terminals, and graphical user interfaces to the internet, the language we have today will carry into who knows what in the future. If these ideas resonated with you today, take them back to your team, practice using natural language, and bring to the surface the unspoken hidden assumptions that you as a team are making about the user. That's it for me. If you would like to connect on LinkedIn, QR code is just up there.
Any questions?
Was that a real transcript of a real conversation?
The first one from
The Terraform one?
95 was. The second one is not a real transcript, but I've heard a back and forth like this across various teams and various contexts and just swapped out the details. So personally, I have never even used conf-test, although I am kind of interested in it. And I did mix some various things up to make it entirely made up. Yeah.
How do you know like where the level is in terms of like who you're like what's natural language to developers and like natural language to users and stuff like that? Like where do you draw the line? Because some stuff, like you said, CI/CD, but someone might not know what that is. Like, does it become like too verbose at some point? Like, yeah, how do you identify that line?
It does get a bit wordy to say over and over again source control platform versus just saying GitHub, or saying, like you mentioned, CI/CD platform versus the named technology. But the named technology can be a way to bring to the surface those hidden assumptions. So one person talking about a particular named technology might be intending for the user to interact it with one way, but when another person hears it and doesn't have the full context of what that journey looks like, or the other boundaries that might be in place, or organizational constraints, some other person might have a completely different idea of how that then gets interacted with.
So like the purpose, like you should understand what's actually happening rather than the names of things.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else?